We will be hated. It's just like it says here, we will be hated as Cain hated Abel because his deeds were evil and his brother's righteous. Here's what I've experienced. A few years back, I remember how much of a revelation it was when I came to the realization that we don't have to sin. And in fact, the Bible commands us not to. That was a major revelation, turning point for me. And the reason that I had believed that sin was just kind of our nature and it was just kind of the way we are is because I had bought into the doctrine of inherited sinfulness. So that's why I speak so much against it. So it was actually that pulled me out of it. When God came to Cain, because if anybody inherited a sinful nature, it would have been the firstborn of Adam, right? And he comes to Cain and says, do you not know that, sin is scratching at your door, that if you do right, you will be accepted, but sin is your choice. So when I realized that sin isn't our natural disposition, that it's something that we develop because we're born into a world of death and we abuse these natural appetites of life because we want to avoid death. When I realized that was a revelation for me. So I started preaching against sin. The reason is because I saw so many Christians walking around saying, "Oh, I'm just a saved saint, I'm a saved sinner." And and so I started preaching heavily against it and said, "No, you've been lied to. You're basically being preached the old original lie of the devil that you will not surely die." So when I became very vocal about this, I got onslaught after onslaught of people on social media telling me that I was a heretic, I was preaching, I was self-righteous Pharisee, that it was impossible, that we're imputed Christ's righteousness and God, his blood covers us and God pretends like he doesn't see our sin and all this stuff. And I realized all this and I'm like, this is all the work of the devil, spirit that rises up in people when you start preaching against sin and say, look, we don't have to sin. We can go and sin no more. We can walk as Jesus walked. We can follow him. We can be obedient. We can walk in the Spirit. When they start accusing you, what I've realized is what it is really the spirit of Cain. And let me read this real quick because this is something I wrote. Those who cease from all sin will be met with those who profess to have the Holy Spirit, but in reality have the spirit of Cain, whose deeds were evil and his brother's righteous. For this is the message that you have heard from the beginning, that we should love one another, not as Cain, who was of that wicked one and slew his brother. And why did he slay him? Because his own works were evil and his brother's righteous. When we start preaching that message and we start actually walking as Christ walked, then we will be hated. It's just like it says here, we will be hated as Cain hated Abel because his deeds were evil and his brother's righteous.